A very good morning to you. Welcome to Motivation Monday, where we bring you challenging conversations and inspiring stories. It is my prayer and hope that throughout Motivation Monday, that there's a sense in which your life is taking shape, that there are ways in which we get to inspire you, to motivate you to be better, to do better. And we'd love to hear just some of the testimonies, sort of things, conversations that have actually shaped some of the things that you're currently doing. And so I would love to hear from you. Send us an SMS on 20316. Send us a WhatsApp message on 0786 316 316. What, for example, is one conversation that we have had here on Motivation Monday that you have found to be most impactful? Please do share with us. Today, we will be talking about the environment. Yes, we're talking about environmental conservation. And I know this seems like conversation that is had in boardrooms, in conferences, and in places like those. But you and I must admit that the environment affects us all. When there is a drought, it affects us all. When there's flooding, it affects us all. We are directly affected by the outcome of our environment. And so this is a conversation for each and every one of us in the little spaces that we are in, to find out how can you and I better conserve this environment that we have. And so joining me for this conversation is Mr. Robert Meyer, who is an environmentalist, and he will be telling us more about himself, even as he helps us appreciate this conversation. So let's just jump right in. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Percy.
Yeah, for the sake of our audience, before we even go into the nitty-gritties of environmental conservation, just introduce yourself to us.
Robert Meyer is a born-again Christian. By the grace of God, I'm a minister of the gospel and a worship leader. Yeah, but professionally, having studied a degree in Bachelor's of Education Arts, I did mathematics and geography. But in education, you can specialize. I mean, you can major in one and minor in the other. So yeah. I majored in geography. And now within geography, that's how I got my space in the environment, because there are now environmental studies within that. And so that's what I got to do. So currently, I am an environmental educator and trainer. I'm a climate change activist, and currently a nature-based solutions enthusiast. So that is what I do on a day-to-day basis. And I'm also married to Angela Njeri. We are blessed with 2 daughters. We have Nadia Pendo and Zuri Nalani. And I'm very happy to be here to have this conversation that is so close to my heart. Yeah. So thank you so much for the invitation.
All right. Asante, and thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. Now, yesterday was World's Wetland Day. I think part of the conversation around environmental conservation. So let's begin there. What is that all about, for example?
All right. So World Wetlands Day. This is an internationally agreed upon day when globally we celebrate wetlands. And so somebody might be wondering, what is this wetland? This is what in a layman's language are actually swamps.
Okay.
These are swamps.
Yeah.
So you notice that we have had swamps in different places, and we have different kinds of swamps. We have the freshwater swamps, and we have the salty water swamps. And so these swamps are categorized by waterlogged soils. So they're not usually good for farming. They are not well aerated. So they have water underneath. So you notice that the most of the soil particles are occupied by water. And that means those particles don't have enough air. And that makes it impossible for growth of certain species of plants. And so it's only suitable for certain, we have what we call wetland tree species that grow. So we have reeds, we have marshes, and what have you. So you have noticed them by the roadsides, you see. But now, over time, it's been noticed that the rate at which they have been diminishing is alarming.
Yeah.
So many people do not appreciate, because they think this is a wasted land, yet it can be put into a more economic use.
Yeah.
So many people would drain away the water, and then you notice after some time the soil will dry up. It will become hardened, and then people can do some economic activities, especially farming. And in the space in which we are, especially in the urban setup, everybody is thinking about real estate.
Apartments.
Exactly, apartments.
Yes.
So people will compact, do everything. So over a period of time, they have been diminishing. Yet they are very important. Maybe we'll get into that detail later. But wetlands and the World Wetlands Day are now protected in what we call the Ramsar Convention. Ramsar Convention is a convention that was held internationally, and it was agreed upon that wetlands be protected after scientifically discovering the value it has to the environment, to life, and in the environment generally. So it was agreed upon. So it's usually celebrated every 2nd of February. Every 2nd of February. And we are privileged. Where I work at Friends of Wandiri, Wetland Kenya. It's an important wetland. You should visit, by the way. A very important wetland. We call it a pit bog. When you walk on the surface, it gives you the bouncing castle effect.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's the second largest wetland we have in Africa, the second largest pit bog. So pit bog, how has this been formed? Initially, it was an open lake. Now, this open lake, the local person in Kikuyu used to call it, I don't know, is it kahenia? Something, a shiny substance. You'll forgive me if the pronunciation is not correct.
Yeah.
But over time, it began to develop reeds on the surface. Yeah. So when the white person came, they called it the Old Lake. So Old Lake began to grow reeds on the surface, and now at the moment as we speak, it's completely covered by reeds, about 2 feet thick. And so because of the water and the description I gave earlier, we have a semi-decomposed matter, which we call peat. So when you hold it, it will give you a feeling of mud. You'll look at it, you'll think it's mud.
Yeah.
But when you touch it, it's not actually mud. It's just carbon that is semi-decomposed. So this is what in the future, due to compaction and temperature issues, it will now turn into coal. Yeah, but now because on the surface of the water, the water is about, I've not scientifically discovered that, but I've heard it's about 25 meters deep. And so because it's covered by this reed and peat, so when you walk on it, it bounces. So it gives you the bouncy castle effect. A very nice place you need to do. So we will be hosting the national event of the World Wetlands. Okay, we held the wetlands, it's called, we held the World Wetlands Day national event. Now, nationally, the stakeholders, the Ministry of Environment and Climate, and the state agencies, NEMA, so all of them, the national event is being organized at Friends of Wandiri. So we were hosted at Alliance High School. Yes, at Alliance High School.
So that I think happened, was it on Saturday?
No.
Yeah.
It happened on Sunday.
Oh, it happened on Sunday?
Yesterday, the 2nd of February.
Okay.
So what happened on Saturday? Now, those are different events. But now, before the government gave us the opportunity to host, usually every year we host with what we call a build-up event to the World Wetlands Day. So normally we hold the Saturday before the World Wetlands Day. So on Saturday we held what we call the Ondiri Wetland Conservation Run. And now this is where we rallied members of the community to come, to join and just learn about wetlands, the importance, why are we doing what we are doing. So we have invited members of the community, including the business community. We're having the social welfare caregivers, the hospitals, the banks, schools, farmers, all of them. So they were invited to come and participate, and we had about 7,500 people participating.
What?
In the run.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is, we hosted, we were the organizers. And so, of course, now being that we were also hosting the World Wetlands Day national event, when they asked us to host the national event, so they also participated. They came to be part of the run in preparation for the World Wetlands Day celebration. So this year's World Wetlands celebration was held under the theme, Protecting Wetlands for the Common Future.
Okay.
Yes. So that was the theme.
Wow. You know, it's interesting because even just helping us to appreciate what wetlands are, because to be honest, I am that common mwananchi. When I see a wetland, I'm like, you know, if only this piece of land could be put to better use. Because the reeds, the marsh do not seem to do anything. They are not food, they cannot be eaten. You know, we have a crisis in terms of housing, and, you know, a few units can be put up there. But just the privilege of understanding even things within our environment that would consider a waste, so to speak, actually not a waste. And so maybe as a precursor to, you know, what we'll still be talking about, let's talk about just the wetlands for a moment. Me, what I see are just reeds. What I see is just, you know, marshes.
Yes.
But you're saying, in terms of the usefulness of that to our environment is quite much. Please enlighten us.
All right. So wetlands, I'll begin by the biggest of the benefits. So you've heard everybody talking about tree planting. So I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, now know the importance of forests when it comes to climate change mitigation, right? Now, one thing that people have not been informed, or what they are not aware, is that the much carbon, because we know that trees will absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere to make food during the process of photosynthesis, and they will give us oxygen, which is a good thing. Now, one thing we've forgotten is that even the peat bog or the wetlands themselves, they play a role in absorbing the atmospheric carbon. Yes, and actually, you notice some wetlands, the rate at which they absorb is higher than what a forest could do.
Okay.
So when it comes to fighting climate change, wetlands can play a better role compared to forests. And you can find out. Because as I talked about peat bog, when I talked about peat bog, we are having the decomposed, the semi-decomposed matter, but we're also talking about the direct carbon that has been tapped from the atmosphere into it. So you find it's a black substance that is made of purely carbon. So we have, of course, the decomposed matter, and now that. So that is one thing that many people had not discovered before until wetlands conservation began to take shape. Now, these are what people are learning. So as much as forests are important, wetlands are as important as
the
forests.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to benefit number 2, wetlands, they harbor what we call biodiversity. There is we have plant species and animals that cannot live anywhere else.
Okay.
They can only survive in wetlands. Now, one thing that people have also not been so considerate about is that in this life, the way God created the universe, these things are intertwined. And that's why in biology, people study about food chains, the energy cycle. All right? So people will drain away water from the wetland, and now there are those plants and animals, we call them flora and fauna, that are adapted to wetland ecosystems. So when we destroy that ecosystem, we have destroyed those biodiversity. So what happens is that the impact will begin to cascade upwards. So you just killed, for example, you just killed a water dragon. All right? It's just a small insect. Now, there is a bigger insect that feeds on that. Or there is fish, or there is a bird that feeds on that. Now, if you destroy the food that this bird depends on, and now there is also another animal that depends on this bird, either for, we talk about pollination purposes or for food. So you look at that food chain. Towards the end, it will affect a human being sooner or later. Yes, sooner or later. And so when we destroy this ecosystem, you have just destroyed life. There are amphibians, there are reptiles, there are mammals, there are birds. Actually, now it's interesting. Like for Ondir wetland, at the moment, we have discovered about 273 different bird species. Different bird species. And now this is attracting bird watchers internationally. Because now we have people who have a career in birds,
Yeah.
bird watching. So they are coming there to see. Now, if we do not have that wetland,
Will not have those birds.
yes, and as we speak in other places that are not conserved, even, growing up, we used to see various types of birds. Now, they have, this has changed. Some of them have actually disappeared. Some of them have migrated away. And if an animal migrates away, it carries away its role that it's been playing here. So the place remains there. So you'll notice, for example, if we have destroyed the pollinators,
Yeah.
so that you would grow crops, and for example, maize. For me, in my village, you would grow and you'll get a maize cob that has different colors of maize grains.
Yeah.
You have white, you have yellow, you have purple, you have... Currently, as we speak, you're going to find a plain white,
Yes.
pure white maize cob. So it means pollination has not taken place. And so that is something else that I will not want us to get into.
Yeah.
But generally, when you destroy a wetland ecosystem, you destroy the biodiversity that inhabits that place, and sooner or later it will touch a human being, especially on food production. And another thing, water. Most wetlands, they play the role of harboring water underneath.
Yeah.
And so that water can be used for irrigation. That water can be used for domestic purposes. It can be used for industrial purposes and other commercial roles.
Yeah.
For example, on the wetland, as we speak, it serves more than, using 2019 census, it was about 60,000 people. But since 2019 up to now, of course, the numbers have increased.
Yeah.
Because the water is drawn directly from wetland.
From the wetland
From
itself.
wetland, yes.
Wow.
And so, like you realize now we have like Kikuyu water. Ondir wetland is a reservoir from which Kikuyu Water Company draws its water. And now tell me anybody in Kikuyu who is not served by Kikuyu water. If they are having piped water, then it's from Kikuyu water.
Yeah.
If they are using boreholes, then their boreholes are recharged by the Ondir wetland.
Wow.
You get that? So that is just another role. Quickly.
But before you even go
yes.
to another one, I didn't know, we just know them as swamps.
Yes.
But wetlands could be that important. And I want us to just, take a music break, and then we continue on the importance. And we're just dealing with wetlands. We've not even gone to the... Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Motivation Monday, where we bring you challenging conversations and inspiring stories. And today is one of those really challenging conversations. And a conversation sometimes that we rarely get to the so-called experts. And we don't feel like qua ground it really matters. And as we have noticed, where it really does matter, even qua ground, literally. And we are talking about environmental conservation today. And our guest is Mr. Robert Meyer, who is an environmentalist himself. Welcome back. I didn't realize, as you've just enlightened us on the importance of wetlands, and as many of us will know them again as swamps. But, things that we could easily ignore in our environment are such useful. So you've given us two importance. What else would you like us to know? Just about these things we call swamps, so that we appreciate the importance of the environment.
All right. Yeah, so another importance is that wetlands, most of them, they protect the adjacent grounds from floods. Because now, swamps usually are at the lowest point of that particular area.
Yeah.
So all the water that might have led to floods will flow there. And now, for instance, I'll proudly say, like, Kikuyu has not suffered from droughts, because all the water from the upland is
from floods.
Yes. Yeah, from floods. So when we are having heavy rainfall and we have now that surface runoff, all that water from the uplands or the higher grounds will flow into the swamp. And that swamp has the capacity to absorb all the water. Yes, and that is why we have not had floods in Kikuyu. I've not read even in history when it flooded there, and so we also have other wetlands that still play the same role. So in floods control, wetlands are. very important.
You know, it is interesting you mentioned that because, you know, wherever it is that it rains and Nairobi floods, one of the things I have heard is that Nairobi was actually a swamp.
Exactly.
That we built a city on a swamp.
Exactly.
And that is why we have these perennial problems occurring time and time again.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So there are floods control, and that's why now you notice where there are floods, it does not matter however you are, or how much you hardened it while you are doing your project. Normally, water will always find its way home.
Yeah.
It will always. That's why you realize, like the cases we've had in Syokimau, where this place has not had a river for the past many years.
Yeah.
And then it floods, and the water will just flow back home.
Like a river.
Exactly. And it will meet these houses, and the houses will just get submerged, and the walls will shield it for some time. And then, of course, with water, it always has that hydraulic power.
Yeah.
To just push the walls away, and then it will naturally flow. So that's why we are also advising people where there are wetlands. There are other economic activities that can happen around wetlands, because in my introduction I said I am a nature-based solutions enthusiast, and so at the moment I'm leading a project called the Ondir Wetland Botanic Gardens project. So we are devising programs that can help people and nature to coexist. Because at the moment, we are not at that place where we can tell residents, move away from this place.
Yeah.
So how can people and this natural resource coexist?
Yeah.
People are getting the most out of the natural resource without damaging it. Now, those are the solutions we are trying to design as we continue.
Yeah.
So floods control, there are some wetlands that are sources of rivers that we know. So they are water towers.
Okay.
And so the more we have drained away these wetlands, the more we have killed our rivers. And now who doesn't know the use of a river?
Yeah.
Yes, so those are natural.
By the way, thinking about it,
Yes.
I think I remember vaguely something I learned in GHCRE, the Ewasonyiro River.
Yes.
Is there a swamp? The Ewasonyiro swamp. Is there something
Yes,
like that?
there is a swamp. There is a swamp around there, yes. And you know, this is a seasonal river.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So there is a swamp in which it drains. And then we say it disappears.
Or as we say, it disappears.
Yeah, we say the river disappears.
So the language is it drains into the swamp.
into it, yes. And yet we have other swamps from which rivers draw their water. For example, now at Kikuyu, you know, this is an urban, terrestrial, and highland swamp. So it's at a higher ground.
Yeah.
So we have a river, we call it Nyongara River. Nyongara River draws its water directly from the swamp.
Wow.
Nyongara River forms the headwaters of Nairobi River.
Really?
Nairobi River, yes. And Nairobi River is a tributary of Athi River. Athi River is the largest river basin we have in Kenya, draining its water in the Indian Ocean. So you have already seen the importance of this wetland.
Yeah.
Yes. So very important. So conserving this wetland is not just about it. It's not just about the people around it. It's about the people along the riverine channel all the way to the Indian Ocean. So the impacts we do on this wetland, or that we cause on this wetland, is going to trickle down to all those communities along this river, down to the Indian Ocean.
Wow. Wow. And that is just a wetland we've talked about and its importance. But now tell me, when it comes to this conversation about environmental conservation,
yes,
why is it such a difficult conversation for the average Kenyan? Let me not talk about the average person. Let me talk about the average Kenyan. To just appreciate and wrap their mind around.
Yeah. So in my introduction, I said I'm a gospel minister. I'm a preacher of the gospel. And you know, at some point I was asking myself, getting into this space, how does it align even with my ministerial calling?
Yeah.
And I just noticed, or I realized, that when God was creating the universe, He actually created the environment, and the command He gave the human being was to take care.
Yeah.
So conservation, environmental conservation is actually heeding to the call of God, to the nature.
Yeah.
Protecting, as he said, will till, cultivate, subdue it, have dominion over it, like make the best use out of it. So the reason from my opinion, the reason why this conversation has not been common until these days is that, one, there was a failure in our education system.
Okay.
Whereby, personally, I told you I studied geography up to the university level. There is just one topic in environmental conservation in Form 4. Actually, it is the second last topic.
Wow.
So if somebody is in high school and did not choose geography as a subject to pursue, then they never had an opportunity to study it.
Wow.
Yeah, in the early years, there were just mentions. Like, it wasn't anything substantial. Yes. And that is why comparing environmental conservation and chemistry and other disciplines that are well taught in schools, so you realize that these are subjects that has been neglected. Yeah. So apart from that, because if people were introduced to these early, for example, in primary schools and continued with it in high school, like they made it a common course, then we will not be having these issues. Then another thing is that people, I think we are very, how do I say it? These people are selfish.
Yeah.
People are just selfish because when it comes to the environment, for example, if I bought a banana along the way going home, and then I just decide to eat the banana, normally I will dispose that thing not thinking of the next person.
That's true.
So we're like, it's just negligence. Everybody's thinking about themselves. Thinking about themselves, and they do not know that whatever they are doing will actually come back to them.
Yeah.
So apart from a failure in the education and in the curriculum development, it has just been, people are not just, they don't think it's a serious thing. Yeah. So normally I tell people, when it comes to hunger, hunger does not know a doctor.
That's true.
Hunger does not know an engineer. Hunger is hunger. And so when it comes to environmental conservation, many people think it's the environmentalists who are supposed to be championing for this. Yet this is something that's cutting across. Every person, whether you are an engineer or you are a farmer or whoever you are, this thing cuts across. So we need to address it just the way we address hunger. When somebody is hungry, they need food.
That's true.
Our environment is in a mess. It needs conservation. And so we don't have to begin pointing fingers. Who can do this? Who can do this? All of us, we are being called into this because it is our responsibility. Yes.
I like that. Now, when we talk about environmental conservation, the flip side is environmental degradation.
Yes.
And I want you to just touch on ways in which we actually degrade. As opposed to conserving, we're not even maintaining status quo, which is bad enough. We are doing worse. We are actually degrading. In what ways have you seen that we actually degrade the very environment that we should conserve?
Yeah, so one, I'll talk about generally exploitation of natural resources.
Okay.
That is the biggest way our environment has been degraded. For example, let's talk about mining of, let's talk of cement, in the limestone area. When we do that, we leave the environment with open, we call them open what? Open, they're not even ditches, they're massive manholes, big ones, that from that point, this place can never be used for anything else. But there is a way the environment used to be. There is a way, let me use biodiversity. They used to exist there before this activity took place. So through mining of these natural resources, and we are not saying that people should not mine, but we are saying is we currently are talking about sustainable mining. So that where we are extracting natural resources, but we are also considering that we do not degrade the landscape. When you talk about exploitation of timber from forests, that has been another big thing. And not just timber, but we're talking about wood generally for, it could be for timber, it could be for fuel, it could be for any other purpose.
Yeah.
And that's how our forests have been destroyed. And later on, it has caused what we call the desert-like characteristics have been found in an otherwise arable land.
Yeah.
Because there is the role that the trees play in helping maintain the structures of the soil,
Yeah.
of course the manure and everything. So when we cut and we destroy the trees, we leave the soil bare. When we leave the soil bare, or it's exposed to agents of erosion. And once erosion kicks in,
Yeah.
and then maybe lastly, it's just about development. So all these structures, we need them. We need development. We need houses. We need roads. We need railway lines. We need all this infrastructure. But sometimes they are done in a way that they leave our environment worse than they found it. I'll just highlight an example.
Yes.
During the construction of the Southern Bypass, it passes actually at the periphery of the Ondiri wetland that we are conserving.
Yeah.
Now, all the water that was used to construct the Southern Bypass, according to the information that I have, was drawn from the wetland and paid for. All the water.
Yeah.
So actually, I hear our coordinator usually says they stole, but of course they just used the water that was available. Why would they buy water
when there is water there?
So that construction, when it passed by the wetland, it distorted the flow of Nyongara River. So they first of all diverted it,
okay,
and then they made an artificial channel, and then they brought the river back. But they did not consider properly the gradient of the river. So they came up with something almost flat.
Okay.
And so for the past many days, the river drowned. So people would come at the surface, there would be no river at all. But as I told you, these are Ondiri is a source of water.
Yeah.
So there is no way that water will stay there. It will always find a way out. So it drowned, and now it began to appear as a spring several kilometers downstream. So that is just a few of the ways. The way we do our farming, monoculture, the mechanized farming is one of the ways we degrade our environment. Because you remember in the past we used to do crop rotation. So that we are not going to exploit fully all the macronutrients in the soils. So you do, after you've done monocots, is it monocotyledons, you come to dicots, like grasses, grains, all these things, vegetables, and the soil would be kept healthy. So as we speak, most of our soils in our land are dead. You remember how we used to study the components of soil? So all the living components of soil are no longer there. And that is why we must use those chemical fertilizers and chemical pesticides for us to get anything from the soil.
Because we've depleted the soil.
Exactly, and that's degradation.
Ooh, that is sad.
Yeah.
And so is it maybe in a minute or so before we listen to another song, is it that we are myopic, so to speak, that we only see the now and do not fully appreciate, the spilling over effect of our actions as pertains to the environment?
Yeah, I think myopic is a good description because we are looking at the benefits now. Yeah, so we are myopic to the extent that we can't see. Of course, some of these effects might not affect us directly, but they're going to affect our generations. So as environmentalists, we say that whoever does good to the environment today doesn't do it for themselves. They do it for their posterity.
Yeah.
So if we are thinking of our children, our grandchildren, then we must be able to look beyond the benefit we can see now. Can we look at the long term? Many times we are actually short-term people. We want to harness as much as possible now, and then later on we'll begin facing the consequences.
Oh, yes. That's very sad. That's very sad. I want us to listen to another song. I think it is sad that we have degraded the environment in more ways than one, and sometimes, unfortunately, even without giving a thought
Exactly.
to it. And I want us to listen to this song. And as we do that, I want us to just share from your own experience, what other ways do you think we degrade the environment? What other ways do we actually bring harm to this same environment that we should conserve? 20316 is our SMS line. 0786 316 316 is our WhatsApp line. But for now, let's listen to this song and then we come back. Welcome back. Welcome back. This is Motivation Monday, where we bring you challenging conversations and inspiring stories. And today's conversation is on environmental conservation. And already, I feel whipped already, because I don't think, honestly, I have thought consciously about the environment, and especially ways in which I ought to conserve it. I try, but I've just realized I am not as intentional, I guess, as I ought to be. And I hope from today, you and I will actually not neglect this and relegate this to the experts, but will realize you and I have a role to play, not just for our sake, but for the sake of the generations to come. Well, helping us with this conversation is Mr. Robert Meyer, who is an environmentalist himself. And so let's get right to it. Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, just as we were listening to that song, you are telling me there's another important way in which we degrade the environment. Please let us know about that.
Yes, so we have degraded our environment in the way we have dealt with wastes. Both solid and waste. I mean solid and liquid wastes.
Yeah.
And sometimes gaseous wastes.
So
all these have degraded our ecosystem. So currently the biggest solid waste issue that we're having is on plastics.
Yeah.
Plastics they are good. They have their value. Of course, they are cheap, they are affordable, and what have you. But do you know, a single piece of plastic, for example, let's use polythene paper. It will take it at least 400 years for it to decompose.
Wow.
Yes, we're not talking about now the hard ones. We're just talking about the polythene paper.
Yeah.
It will take at least 400 years for it to decompose. So think of now these heavier ones. And so we have used them, but we have not disposed them off responsibly.
As we ought to.
Some of them have found themselves along the river courses. Some of them have flown all the way to the oceans. And as we speak currently, the marine life is in danger because of plastics. Some of them have swallowed plastic. Some of them are caught plastics. And if we destroy marine life, and I talked about the energy cycles and the life itself. So it's like it begins from the ocean upwards. So it has that effect. And where we are having dump sites, there are places many people will not want to visit. But these are wastes. So is there a way we can look at it and see that we dispose of responsibly? So maybe that's what I just needed to mention.
Okay. Yes. And you know, I've just remembered, because growing up when I was a child, we reared a few goats. And sometimes the goats would mysteriously fall ill. And then, you know, so that we don't lose them, we would slaughter. And when we slaughter, we would realize in the stomach, you know, we would find a ball of polythene bags.
Yes.
And actually that was the cause. That is actually what I think there was intestinal blockage and things on account of that. So it's actually true.
Yes, it is.
That is sad. Now, what then should we do? If we are to be good agents of change, if we are to conserve this particular environment, it's the only one we have. What is the call to action then for everyone that is listening and everyone that is watching us today?
All right, for everyone that is listening, I need to bring to our attention that the environment or the planet currently is facing three challenges. We call it the triple planetary crisis. We're talking about climate change. That is number one, and that's the effect of the greenhouse gases, the carbon and all those gases in the atmosphere. We have biodiversity loss. So many people talk about climate change, but they don't talk about biodiversity loss that comes as a result of climate change. And then we have pollution. So these are the biggest challenges that the United Nations and all the affiliated states are working towards. They have come into agreements in doing. And so somebody, of course, when I talk about that, they're thinking about those are big entities to do. But we all have a responsibility to play in this. Number one, we are encouraging planting trees. Currently, we do not have many forests, but some of us have at least small pieces of land. So we would not want you to plant a forest there, because I know you want to do maybe a garden, a kitchen garden, but maybe if all of us did like 2 or 1 trees, just 1 tree.
Yeah.
Just 1 tree. So its impact is going to help somebody in Indonesia.
Really?
Yes, because now the effect, once it begins sapping that carbon and the greenhouse gases from the atmosphere, we said in biology that diffusion is the flow of particles from a region of high concentration to that of low concentration. So once there is low carbon concentration here, particles in highly concentrated areas will come here, and now we'll be helping them. And that's why now we are having that discussion of carbon credits, but let me not get into that.
Yeah.
So, planting trees. But what type of trees are we planting? Because some people have planted trees that have caused more harm
Than good.
than good. For instance, in Magadi, we know the environment in Magadi is a bit hot, salty, and what have you. So many trees could not grow there. So there is a certain tree plant, I don't remember the name, that was planted there. Very green when you see it. But what it has done is that goats have fed on it and have lost their teeth, and they have miscarried. So look at that. It's counter.
Was it the same one that was in Baringo?
Yeah, I think there is a Mathenge one.
Yes. Oh, the Baringo one was the Mathenge one.
Yes. So yeah, so we have that, and also maybe in other details we have other tree species who have the effect we call allelopathy, such that their leaves do not decompose, but if they do, they have toxic substances, so that when they get in contact with the soil, those toxins kill microorganisms around. So you'll notice that these trees have been grown, but there is no undergrowth.
Ah, okay.
So, but when you're talking about a natural forest, a natural ecosystem, we need to have big trees, we need to have shrubs, we need to have grasses. So all this must survive in the same ecosystem. So there are some exotic species that have come and they have that allelopathy.
Yeah.
And so we are encouraging that when we are planting, for example, what we do in our community, in our tree planting, we have had consultative meetings with them. Of course, now these are at an organizational level. But now at an individual level, we know the kind of trees that are used to be in our region.
Yeah.
Can we think of a way of bringing them back? For the a few that are there, is there a way we can raise them again? Is there a way that we can maybe regrow them, maybe even create nurseries and just have them back? Because those are the trees that have the best interest for us in that particular region.
Yeah.
So not every tree is good for every region. So that is the awareness we are creating, that tree planting and growing is good, but not just any tree.
Yeah.
We need to use, currently we are using what we call the transgenerational knowledge transfer. So we are talking to the elderly.
Yeah.
So we get to this old man and ask him, sir, which growing up, you grew up in this region, yes, so tell us some of the trees that you used to see those days.
Yeah.
And so after they have shared their knowledge, now we merge it with modern science and see what better thing we can do.
Yeah.
So tree planting is number 1. Number 2, let us conserve wetlands. Wetlands, as I've mentioned, they have roles, similar roles like those of forests.
Yeah.
And so if we conserve them, there are places that we can never grow forests, but we have wetlands.
Yeah.
Now, let's get into it. Conserving means we are calling people to adopt at least new technologies of farming, whereby, of course, we've been doing mechanized farming, especially for those who do plantation farming, and that is another discussion. But we are thinking, is there a way we can go organic? So that currently, as we speak, our soils have been degraded in a way that they are now dead. Now, how can we bring them back to life? Can we go back to using manure? I know it's bulky. I know this discussion. Yeah, but can we go back to organic matter? Because when we bring back organic matter, our soils revive. When our soils revive, I remember in our village we would grow maize, but as maize grow, you'll find groundnuts. You'll find beans that you never grew, but because they have already grown, so you'll just take care, you'll manage all of them, and in the end you harvest. But currently we are just seeing plain lands, these maize plantation, straight. There is nothing, no grass, no nothing. In Asma, you know, weeds. When we talk about weeds, many people they hate weeds, but weeds just means that these are plants that have grown that we don't need them at this moment. So not that all of them are bad, but let's try organic. And also for those ones whose lands border maybe wetlands or riverine ecosystems, we have what we call a riparian space. So we are encouraging members, because of the importance that these wetlands have, let's not do farming to the very edge of the river, because as we do that, we lose the soil. When the soil is loosened up, it will collapse into the river. It causes what we call siltation. And siltation leads to a rising in the level of the river. And if that river is big, now you guys, you are susceptible to floods.
That's true.
Yes. So, but there is a way we do. You can try to do grasses, for example, Napier grass. You will use it, but you can grow it to the next to the river, so that crop farming comes maybe a few meters, depending on how you are. You know, riparian space is a relative issue at the moment. Like we have those ones that are talking about 30 meters. We have those that are talking about smaller distances. But depending on how it's been agreed in your region, what riparian means. If we try to do that and do maybe fruit, even fruit trees, just to have our soils compact and they're not exposed to erosion, we are going to protect ourselves by doing that. So that is something else that we are calling people to. And then number 3, and maybe that's the last one, in our waste management. I'm talking about Nairobi. We talk about during the day we are about 6 million. I'm not so sure. If everybody bought a sweet, and then everybody threw just wrapper. You know, a wrapper is a very small thing. You wouldn't think of it as having that big impact.
That's true.
Now imagine in a day we're having roughly 3 million wraps, our sweet wrappers.
Wow.
And now we are talking about Nairobi has a problem with waste management. But what is my role in contributing to that? So we are encouraging people to manage litter or wastes at the source. That is the only way. We have had many people doing initiatives like river cleanups, like River Nairobi has been cleaned from the longest time.
That's true.
But has it ever been clean?
No.
So somebody asked me, what do you think we need to do to have our rivers clean like a Nairobi River? I said, we know where the source of wastes is. We go to the source, manage it there. If the issue is raw sewage into the river, where does this raw sewage come from? We go to where it comes from.
We deal with it
and now
there.
deal with it there. Develop or devise strategies to handle it from there. And by so doing, the river naturally will become clean. If it's about plastics, where are these plastics coming from? Instead of going to the river, because I have done cleanups myself, and I'm not an advocate of cleanups, because sometimes you are cleaning, you move a few meters away and somebody litters from where you've just cleaned. So the things are discouraging. But for me, I do them as a way to create an environment where I can now raise awareness. So I begin cleaning up, and now people will begin thinking, a few people have thought they have found me cleaning alone in Kikuyu town sometimes. So I've done individual cleanup activities. They're like, huyu maybe ameshikwa na kanjo
akapewa punishment.
Or this one is serving an outside sentence, or this one is not just right upstairs. So while they are wondering, of course they will begin talking, of course murmuring here and there. Now I will take that opportunity to go to them. And now that is how my cleanups have been, talking to them. If I manage my maize cob here, then no one is going to fall on its account out there. If I manage my banana peeling here, then nobody is going to be affected. Of course, banana peeling is, we call it biodegradable. But if I throw it next to the roadside, somebody will slip
That's true.
They'll break their leg. They are going to incur costs that they would not have done if I took care of my banana peeling. So I'm appealing to all of us that we responsibly take care of the litter wherever we are.
Yeah.
If it is that tea bag, we sort it there after tea. If it is that tissue paper, of course tissue paper might not be anything big. If that polythene paper, if we manage it, if the 55 million of us managed our litter from the source, we'll not be talking about solid waste management at the moment. We'll not be talking about sewage. We'll not be talking about, because we have managed them at the source. So that is the call, that all of us can participate from wherever we are. You don't need to be an environmentalist. You don't need to be you don't need to be a climate change activist. You don't need to be that person who has studied this. Wherever you are a singer, you can participate. You are a photographer, you can participate. You are a preacher, all of us, we have a role to play. Yes.
Wow. Wow. I think that is really important information, and thank you so much. If someone were to, maybe learn more about these things, where might they be able to get you?
Robert Meya, that's my name on all my social media handles, Meya, M-E-Y-A. Apart from on Facebook, where I have Meya Robert Lubale, Robert Lubale Meya of M-A-Y-O-R. Robert Meya. On LinkedIn, Robert Meya. On Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on WhatsApp. So I don't know.
If someone asks for the number, then we'll be able to.
So I'm available. But at the moment, our Ondiri Wetland Botanic Gardens office is actually at the Ondiri Wetland. We're having an Ondiri Wetland Information Center. Anybody who has used the Southern Bypass, we have opposite St. Teresa's. There is a green container next to eco toilets that were developed by NEMA. So that's where we are. That's where we are working from, conserving that important natural ecosystem.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Meya. Thank you for your time and for helping us appreciate ways in which we can conserve this environment, part of the mandate we still have from God to work and to keep this particular environment that God has given us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
Wow. Well, we have come to the end of our conversation, and to be honest, it is my prayer and hope that in the little way you can, you'll actually begin to be environmental conscious and begin to conserve your environment. So that wrapper that you have, that banana peel, let's begin at least with our waste management in our own little ways. And may God help us to be able to be good stewards of the environment. This is it from us. Kindly do join us again next week for another good conversation. And like I shared earlier, please do share with us in what ways have these conversations here at Motivation Monday been of help to you. Please do share with us. 20316 is the SMS line. 0786316316 is our WhatsApp line. Before I go, a reminder that we continue doing this by virtue of partnership with men and women like yourself. And so this is an invitation that you consider being one of our partners by way of prayer and through your financial contributions. If you'd like to give even now, kindly feel free to use paybill number 316 and for account, just write your phone number. If you'd like to be a partner, do send an SMS with the word partner to 20316 or even to 0786316316 and somebody will get back to you. This is goodbye, and so let us go forth and conserve our environment. See you next week.